In the wise words of our elders, what you sow, you shall reap. A timeless Nigerian adage that reminds us how actions often circle back in unexpected ways. Today, that proverb seems eerily fitting as we delve into an unfolding drama in Nigeria's legal and political landscape, where a former top government official finds himself facing serious accusations that echo the very charges he once pursued against others. Barrister Aloy Ejimakor, a key legal figure in the ongoing saga surrounding Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, has publicly labeled the recent terrorism charges against ex-Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, as a form of Nemesis, directly linking it to Malami's involvement in Kanu's case. This development has sent ripples through the nation, raising questions about accountability, justice, and the long arm of consequences in public service. This na confirm street news, na waiting we hear with the report, but be sure say na confirm. Abeg, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment to help us grow and bring you undiluted news. Let's break down what has transpired. Just days ago, on February 3, 2026, the Department of State Services arraigned Malami and his son, Abdulaziz Abubakar Malami, before the Federal High Court in Abuja. The charges are grave, filed under the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act of 2022 and the Firearms Act of 2004. Specifically, Malami faces a solo count of knowingly abetting terrorism financing during his time in office. Prosecutors allege that in November 2022, while serving at the Federal Ministry of Justice, he deliberately failed to prosecute suspected terrorism financiers whose case files had been forwarded to him for action. This inaction, they claim, aided those involved in financing terrorist activities, violating key sections of the anti-terrorism law. Alongside this, Malami and his son are jointly accused in 4 additional counts related to preparatory acts for terrorism and the unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition. Authorities say that in December 2025, at their residence in the Gese Phase 2 of Benin Kebbi State, they were found with a Sturm Magnum 170101 firearm, 16 live rounds of Red Star AAA 520 cartridges, and 27 expended cartridges of the same type, all without valid licenses. These possessions are said to constitute preparation for terrorist acts and breaches of firearms regulations, carrying severe penalties if proven. The court proceedings took place before Justice Joyce Abdul Malik, marking a stark turn for Malami, who until 2023 held one of the nation's highest legal positions under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. It's a moment that has captivated many, especially those following the intersections of law, politics, and security in Nigeria. And if you're finding this story as intriguing as I do, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts on justice in our system, and subscribe for more in-depth narratives on the issues shaping our country. Your engagement keeps these conversations alive. To understand why this matters so deeply, we need to step back and look at the broader context. Abubakar Malami's tenure as Attorney General was marked by high-profile cases, including his role as the chief prosecutor in the trial of Nnamdi Kanu. Kanu, the head of IPOB, a group advocating for the secession of southeastern Nigeria to form an independent Biafra, has been a polarizing figure. His movement gained momentum amid long-standing grievances over marginalization, economic disparities, and historical tensions dating back to the Nigerian Civil War of the late 1960s. IPOB's activities, which included protests and calls for referendums, were labeled as terrorist operations by the Nigerian government in 2017, leading to Kanu's initial arrest and charges. He jumped bail and fled the country, only to be dramatically rearrested in Kenya in June 2021 and extradited back to Nigeria, a process Kanu's legal team has repeatedly challenged as an extraordinary rendition that violated both Nigerian constitutional protections and international human rights standards, including treaties against unlawful abduction and extradition without due process. Under Malami's oversight as Attorney General, the government pursued Kanu aggressively. The prosecution argued that Kanu's broadcasts and organizational activities incited violence and threatened national unity, leading to his trial on multiple terrorism counts. After prolonged legal battles, including appeals and international scrutiny from bodies like the United Nations and human rights organizations, Kanu was convicted in November 2025 on 7 counts related to terrorism. He received a life sentence, a decision that intensified debates over freedom of expression, ethnic self-determination, and the government's handling of separatist movements. Malami's office was central to building and advancing this case, from coordinating the extradition to overseeing the evidentiary proceedings. Critics, including human rights advocates, have pointed to procedural irregularities, such as alleged torture during Kanu's detention and restrictions on his access to counsel, but the conviction stood, cementing Malami's legacy as a hardliner on national security issues. Now enter barrister Aloy Ejimakor, who has been a steadfast legal consultant to Kanu throughout his ordeal. In a pointed statement shared on social media on February 4, 2026, Ejimakor didn't mince words. He described the charges against Malami as an epic trial that recalls Malami's ignoble role in Kanu's extraordinary rendition and what he termed the questionable prosecution and conviction. Ejimakor framed this as Nemesis in action, a concept he equated to karma in local terms, patient but inevitable. He emphasized that the situation should worry anyone who was complicit in what he called the grave injustice done to Kanu, suggesting that accountability might extend beyond Malami to others involved in the arrest, extradition, and imprisonment processes. While Ejimakor's words carry the weight of personal involvement, they resonate with a broader sentiment among Kanu's supporters who view Malami's current predicament as a divine or cosmic balancing of scales, punishing him for his part in keeping Kanu behind bars. This perspective ties into deeply held beliefs in many Nigerian communities about moral retribution, where actions against others, especially those seen as unjust, invite higher powers to intervene. It's as if the universe, or in the eyes of the faithful, God, is exacting punishment on Malami for his instrumental role in orchestrating Kanu's jailing, turning the tables in a way that underscores the fragility of power. The implications of these charges are multifaceted and far-reaching. Politically, they could signal a shift in how former officials are held accountable under the current administration, potentially eroding the impunity that has long plagued Nigerian governance. If convicted, Malami could face lengthy imprisonment, fines, or both, which might deter future office holders from similar oversights or abuses. Socially, this case amplifies ongoing discussions about ethnic tensions and the treatment of separatist groups. Kanu's supporters in the southeast see this as validation of their claims that the government's actions against IPOB were politically motivated rather than purely security-driven, possibly fueling calls for his release or a political resolution to the Biafra question. Economically, any instability from such high-profile trials could impact investor confidence, especially in a nation already grappling with security challenges in multiple regions. On the security front, the charges highlight vulnerabilities in Nigeria's anti-terrorism framework. If even a former chief law officer is accused of abetting financing, it raises alarms about systemic weaknesses in prosecuting threats from groups like Boko Haram or bandit networks. Moreover, the firearms possession allegations add a layer of personal misconduct, potentially damaging Malami's reputation and that of his family. Public reactions, though still emerging, reflect a divided nation. Among Kanu's advocates and IPOB sympathizers, there's a sense of vindication, with social media buzzing about karma's patience and divine justice at work. Some have echoed Ejimakor's warnings, suggesting that other figures from the Buhari era, including security chiefs and judicial officers involved in Kanu's case, might face similar scrutiny. On the other side,
Malami's supporters argue that the charges could be politically orchestrated, perhaps as retribution by the current administration or rivals settling old scores. Legal experts have noted the irony: a man who championed anti-terrorism laws now defending against them. Broader civil society groups are calling for transparent proceedings to ensure justice isn't weaponized, emphasizing the need for due process. Ironically, the same principle Kanu's team has repeatedly invoked. Looking ahead, several scenarios could unfold. The trial's outcome will depend on the evidence presented, including documentation of the unprosecuted case files and forensic analysis of the seized firearms. If the prosecution builds a strong case, it could lead to convictions and set precedents for holding high officials accountable. Appeals are likely, given Malami's legal expertise and resources, potentially dragging the matter for years. For Kanu, this might indirectly bolster his appeals. His team could argue that the prosecutor's alleged biases or conflicts taint the original conviction, pushing for a retrial or release. On a larger scale, this could prompt reforms in how terrorism financing is monitored and prosecuted, strengthening Nigeria's legal institutions. Watchers of Nigerian politics will be keen to see if this sparks investigations into other former officials or if it remains an isolated event. Whatever happens next, it underscores the precarious nature of power in our democracy, reminding us that today's accuser could become tomorrow's accused. As we wrap up this deep dive into a story that blends law, legacy, and perhaps a touch of fate, I encourage you to share your views in the comments below. Do you see this as Nemesis at play or something else entirely? If you appreciated this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more unbiased news narratives, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on stories like this that affect us all. Your support helps us continue bringing you the facts straight from the heart of Nigeria's unfolding events.